Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Tanya Talks. Good evening. Thank you for taking the time to come out this evening and to listen to us. Today, I'm joined by Karen Rose. And Karen is, I just wanted to, before we start with what the conversation is going to be today, I just want to thank Karen. Karen is a physiotherapist who has looked after, and it's a special story that I tell people behind the scenes that Karen doesn't know about, so I'm calling her out here for a minute.
Oh, great.
Well, my daughter went to an amusement park once. I like to recognize, anybody that follows me on Instagram or Facebook, for those of you, it's about celebrating and appreciating the people in our lives that have shown up for us when, we most needed them. And my daughter had gone to a amusement park, came off a ride, and her neck, I think she was about 9 or 10 years old, and her neck was permanently turned to the side. And I didn't know what to do. And the way it looked, she was in so much pain. It looked like it was going to be like that permanently. So I called Karen up and I said, okay, I'm like desperate. I'm ready to call like any and everybody. And Karen goes, yeah, bring her over. It's common. You hear about it all the time. You go to these amusement parks and we don't know sometimes the dangers of some of these rides. So Karen did what she needed to do as a physiotherapist, and she looks at me and she goes, if she sleeps for the next 18 hours straight and doesn't come out of bed, don't worry about it because I did XYZ, XYZ. And lo and behold, my daughter slept for a very long time. She says, make sure she drinks lots of water, she's hydrated, and she'll be fine. And I was like, and she was. Now, what I learned after that had Karen not stepped into the picture at that moment, there would have been permanent damage. So anybody that wants to be treated by Karen, feel free to visit her, DM her. She's at Physiofunction on Facebook and on Instagram. She's in the Toronto area. I know it's COVID times, but you can reach out to her on Facebook and Instagram at Physiofunction. So thank you, Karen, and welcome this evening.
Thank you. And yes, my pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me tonight.
Yeah, so tonight we are going to have a conversation about being present, being still, being in the moment. So what does that look like? What does that mean? And I guess the question I want to ask you, Karen, is when did that start for you?
When I started to be aware about being present.
Yeah, I'm like, not everybody's aware that they're not present.
I think what it's going to take me back to 2006-ish. And I was at my hairdresser's, and she had given me a book. She said she put some color in my hair. She gave me a book, and it was The Power of Now.
Okay.
And I had never even thought about being present. What was present? I don't know. Like, it was just, I was just going about my business, right? And I read the first paragraph in his book was about being able to actually go in and wash your hands after you go to the bathroom or whatnot, and feel the water on your hands.
Right.
And feel the towel as you're drying your hands. And I thought, this guy's crazy. Like, who does that? Who spends time to actually feel what the water feels like? But, I'm sitting there and she's off doing whatever. So I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. And it was the strangest experience, because how many times had I washed my hands before that and never even knew what it felt like to wash my hands. And for all those people who have not practiced being present or don't know what it's like to be present, I encourage you to go and try that. Feel what the water feels like and feel what the towel feels like as you dry your hands. For me, that was the tipping point for me. It was, there is something here that I need to learn, that I need to practice. And I intuitively felt like it was the answer for a lot of things that I was looking for. And so ever since then, it's a daily practice for me to work at, and sometimes it is work, at being present.
Well, because the whole
sometimes more than others.
And I think when I hear you say that, like about feeling the water and that stillness and being present, it's we're not taught to connect to ourselves, to feel the sensation in our toes, to feel the sensations in our fingers. Like we're not taught to connect to how we feel, to be present in this moment of what the thought is in this moment. So we're not taught to show up for ourselves in that moment, to recognize ourselves. And then we wonder why we don't show up for anybody else.
Mm. Well, I think that it's we're also taught, we're not taught that the mind is something that we can use, but we don't have to use it all the time.
Right,
It doesn't have to be running all the time. And
right.
that was a big aha moment for me, that I had asked, I actually asked my husband one day, and he was sitting there, and I said, what are you thinking about? And he said, nothing. And I thought, how does anybody think about nothing? Like, how do you do that? Like, we've got, at the time, we had only 2 children. And I thought, yeah, like, I'm thinking about doctors and dentists and got to get to school and homework and all of these things. And yet he was just enjoying the moment.
Yes.
Me, I was like, you're so unevolved. Like, seriously, you, like, how do you? And yet it was me. It was me that was not able to do that. And I wasn't listening to something that he was teaching me at that moment. You know, the value of being able to just be,
Right.
and that's it. You know.
And I think that I'm going to step out on a limb here and say that I'm not convinced. Like I think it's easier for guys just to say no, they're not thinking anything. I think it's what we're just constantly going, because I can hear my husband say when I'm not thinking about anything. What do you mean you're not thinking about
Mm.
anything? I'm like, that's impossible. The brain does that. That's impossible. Okay.
But I think it's a gift. I really do. I think that um, if we as women are the multitaskers, if we're going to generalize, and the men are the ones who can sit and think about nothing, I got to tell you that I'd rather be a man. Like, I would, like, I know that that sounds crazy, but it is such a gift to be able to spend time and not have your head running a mile a minute,
Right.
to just enjoy the other senses that we have, like feeling the chair as I sit here, or, listening and hearing birds, and, hearing silence, which is one of, the things that I like to do, to just to sit in silence.
Right.
Um, I do
And as
think
you're
it's a gift.
saying all that, when you're saying all that, like right now in this moment, what comes to my mind is to why people may not do that. And there's a trust piece in it. Like if I stop thinking, like you said, I'm a mom, I'm multitasking, I'm doing this. We have this thing where we're controlling and we feel like we have to be in control and to be thinking one step ahead. And that we actually think, not everybody, I'm not saying this for everybody, for those of you listening, but see if there's a lack of trust, that if you're still, that you think everything's going to fall apart.
Mm. I think I would use the word control as well.
Right.
And that is coming from my place of, I have to control these things. I have to control what's happening next. I have to control what the rest of the day looks like, or what's going on with the children, or whatnot. Um, and when I learned that we don't control any of that, that was, it was almost like a permission to be still, permission to
Right.
be in the present, to learn that we don't control any of that kind of stuff.
And then
Um,
you feel the whole weight lifted off your shoulders.
it is, yeah. And I got to say, like, now my favorite days are the days where I wake up and I'm present, and the rest of the day is spent being present. And it's about, what is the next right thing. It's not about, I've got to get the laundry. Like, usually it's on a weekend, right? I got a laundry done. I got to get this and this and this and this. And when I stop thinking about that and just think, what is the one thing? What is the next one thing that I can do? That by the end of the day, I look back and I think, wow, I got a lot done today. But it was a lot done without feeling like I was rushing through things. It was doing things and getting a lot done and enjoying it all,
Mhm.
which has been a big a big lesson for me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a big aha moment of like, I like to clean my house now. Whoever thought that I would say that? My kids remember when they were younger, and oh my God, it's Sunday and it's cleaning day, like just like mom's gonna yell, we're not doing it fast enough, we're not doing it good enough, we're not, you know, like couldn't stand those days, right? I couldn't stand those days. And now when I get up in the morning and the kids are now sleeping, um, the first thing I want to do is clean because I can be present while I'm doing it. So it's not necessarily cleaning that I enjoy. It is the being present that I enjoy, and therefore can appreciate the
Would
cleaning
you like
piece.
another environment to be present
No, I do not want to come and clean your house.
in?
No, I do not. I knew where you're going with. No, I don't. Um, I like to be present in my own space and clean my own stuff.
Because I haven't seemed to, everybody when they're like, I love cleaning, I love a clean house, but I am not going to be present in the cleaning.
Well, you know what? There's another component of that. So I'm a big believer that we don't, to get into shape with our bodies and functionally in shape, that we don't necessarily have to go to gym. We don't have to run and whatnot, and which is a big deviation from where I've been
Mhm.
and how I grew up. And so part of my cleaning now is about being present, but it's also about working my body in a functional way.
Right.
So I would do squats while I vacuum, or I'd work on my shoulder posture while I was cleaning something, and so I can always kind of check off a couple of my goals while I'm cleaning. So it's not just about the cleaning piece.
Right, right. And I think that that's what like, I mean, that's a different perspective that's encouraging and motivating because you're taking a different approach to it. And for me, it's exhausting because I get so detailed in the cleaning that just the thought of getting that detail, I'm just like, do I really? And then I start to reorganize, and then one thing leads to
Then
another.
you're not present, and
Yeah, just like
so
yeah.
maybe that's a piece of it, that's the, like how, okay, so let me ask you this, like if I was to say, Tanya, get present before you clean, how would you get present?
No clue. I would do it. I would do the resistance bit.
But how, okay, so but how would you, like, how do you get present, if it's not about cleaning and stuff, like just on a general basis, how do you get there?
I breathe. So I love breathing exercises. I get up in the morning, and the first thing I do when I wake up is I pay attention to my breathing and I say thank you. And that's my way of just connecting to the moment. As soon as I feel my breath, everything else starts to, I start to feel everything else. And I just don't think about what next. I just I just connect to breathing.
It's breathing, I think, is one of those underrated things that we do.
Mhm.
The breathing is something that we can relate to how our body's functioning, our emotions, our mind, right? And it is a gateway, and it's always giving us information and feedback. And so that's one of the things that I do as well, is breathing. And
That's the other stuff I don't, because for me I don't. I can feel myself like a few weeks ago I was lying in the bed and I was doing my breathing and I'm breathing in and I'm breathing out. So my husband looks up, he's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm breathing." He's like,
as opposed to later when you're not going to be breathing, right?
right, like looks like I'm intentionally breathing now, where I'm like, and it calms me and it made me realize learning. I always knew that I wasn't breathing, so that's one thing I knew. And I would go places, and I still do it to this day. I'm sure I've been on the phone with you, and I'm like catching my breath. So I'm aware in those moments that I'm not breathing, and it was always one of those things where I knew that I wanted to learn how to breathe, but I wouldn't allow myself to be still enough for whatever reason to allow myself to be present to breathe until I just started to do it, and I love it. I think it's phenomenal. It I don't know what your experience is with breathing. For me, what I find that when I start to really breathe, I can feel everything working itself out in my life without me trying.
Mm, that's powerful.
So I'm not sure. I've been saying this to a lot of people, but I always feel that now in my moment of breathing, it's like there's a movie out there and this lady goes through heartbreak and she meets this new man and he sees past her hurt and her pain and he goes, all I need you to do is wake up and I'll take it over from there. And I really feel that that's when I wake up, it's like, okay, all I have to do is focus on breathing and God will take it over from there. And I'm guided to the right place, the right people show up. It's real. Like when you hear people talk about it in movies and stuff, or documentaries or interviews about this stillness and allowing and being present and in you and feeling the senses where you're holding tension, how like it just your body speaks to you and so does the rest of the world around you. And it's amazing what if you want to call it magic, that happens in your life as a result of it.
I think the piece, the present piece for me is being present equals stillness, equals quiet, which therefore allows the messages, the guidance that is always there for us,
Yes.
that we can actually then hear that. Like I think that we are bombarded by information all the time. It's either information that we are creating in our heads, we're thinking those things, or it's information that is coming to us, right? So we're allowing that information to come. And I make the distinction between the two, that one is a thought process and one is an allowing process.
Mm.
And when I am still, when I am present, the allowing is so loud that
Mhm.
I cannot not listen. And so that guidance is there for me. And I think that that is why I feel life is easy when I am present, because there's some, and when I say there's something else, like, I mean, you can be religious, you can call it God, you can call it Buddha, I call it energy, um, or my inner guide. Um, and that inner guide is guiding me to exactly where I want to go. So
Yeah.
I've made the intention, or I've set the goals and spoken it, and so it's out there. And now it's just listening to, okay, it's almost like a navigation system in your
Yeah.
car.
Of course.
Like it tells you, okay, go and turn left and go and turn
So why
right.
are
And
we not being still? Like the question
yeah.
becomes, why are we not being still? Like really, like I love it. Like I'm like, where was I? What took me so long to learn this? Like I would have shaved off 15 years of my life.
But I guess then the question is, were you ready?
No, right. We can go down that rabbit
Yeah,
hole because
like,
we weren't ready. But gosh, for any of us parents out there, let's start teaching the young kids like how to be
mm,
still and be mindful and
yeah.
be present. Because you're right, Karen, it really is in the space of that stillness, in the breathing, in the present moment, we are receiving guidance, we are being navigated. And
Mm.
how different will life look for our children if they learn that
Mm.
early?
I think also to learn to trust, trust ourselves, trust that we don't need to control. Um, and that all comes from that being present. I talk to my children about their gut instinct. When you're in a situation, you're trying to figure out, do I do this? Do I do that? And I always say, you gotta trust inside. You gotta trust that gut instinct because it won't ever steer you wrong.
Mhm.
Um, and I think that as a parent, that's one of the big things that I am instilling in them, because our minds can talk us in and out of whatever we want, right? And then you have that constant battle inside. I have that constant battle. I can't speak for anybody else. I just assume that everybody else has this, but maybe they don't.
Well, we
Um,
do.
but it's almost like those cartoons, when you were younger, and the little, angel over here and the little devil over here, and it is this like constant like back and forth and back and forth, and it's exhausting.
Right. I
And
was thinking that, yeah.
so if I can help my children to understand that this is not who you are, like these people, these things that are talking back and forth, that is your, and we can go into the ego and all of that kind of stuff, but that is not who you are, right? And so when you silence that, when you calm that down, and then you can hear your truth, it points you in the right direction, and amazing things happen,
Right.
without having to make them happen.
Right. Absolutely. It reminds me of the studies that I had done as a child when I was exposed to, my yoke is easy and why do we worry? And when you're in that stillness and you're present, there is no worry.
Mm.
And the reality is, when you talk about the trust piece, from that all it's trusting, you don't have to worry, the ego, that it's just, we're surrendering, and it's like energy, as you talk, we're allowing the energies just to flow freely through us
Mm.
and into the next thing. Half of the stuff we don't want to carry.
Mm.
And guess what? The gateway to not carrying it is to be still and to be present and just allow, let it go. What you said earlier on, Karen, you set the intention and just let it go and be still and be present.
I think that like one of the things that's struck me about what you just said about worrying, when I heard the definition of what worrying is about thinking of the things that you don't want to happen.
Right.
Why would I waste the moment doing that? Um, that was a big aha moment for me.
Because we're
Like
trying
just
to
that
control the
definition.
output. Right.
Yeah,
Because we're trying to
yeah,
control the outcome.
yeah,
Right.
right.
We've got
And
to be in
so
control.
the worry piece is living in the future, and the depression piece is living in the past.
Mhm.
And I've done both in my life. And I got to tell you, I don't want to go back to either one of those things. Um, Now, there are days when, my mind is, I call it, my mind is strong. And there are days when being present is just not happening, you know, whether it's, through my meditation, right? Out of my 45 minutes, an hour of meditation, I might be actually meditating for all of about 30 seconds. And I used to beat myself up about that. Like, come on, like, why can't I just quiet? Just, okay, no, okay, quiet, quiet. And it just wouldn't come. And now I just accept those times and just say, okay, you know what? Today is just a day where my mind is strong. And I had one of those on the weekends, right? I was telling you that I had this big aha moment, and I wanted to connect with you. I wanted to share, but I knew that my mind was going to be really, really strong, talking me out of things, and well, let's just say talking me out of things, and putting up resistance. And I just thought, you know what, today, that was Saturday. And after my little aha moment in the morning, the rest of the day, I thought, I am not even listening to whatever's going on out there. But it was nonstop, nonstop of this chatter in my head. And I think I've learned to not even fight that now, that
Mhm.
sometimes I'm not going to be present, and
Mhm.
that's okay.
Mhm.
Those times get shorter and shorter, right? That time of resistance would have lasted a week before. You
Mhm.
know, on Saturday it lasted a couple of hours, and I woke up the next day and was able to get back into the, okay, what is the next right step?
Right.
You know, not I have to plan all of these things out. I just have to know what I'm going to do now,
Right.
and what am I going to do now? You know, um,
And when you think about energy flowing freely, when you start to think about all the other stuff, it there's too much energy can't flow with all this stuff around it. It's like all the
mhm,
rocks built up in a creek and a river. When you take the
mhm,
rocks and the water flows freely. So as I'm listening to you say, like, what's the next thing? You're not thinking about what's the next thing for the next 5 days. It's like, what if you're saying present, what's the next thing to do right now in this
Yeah,
moment?
yeah.
And you're not
And
carrying anything, you're just allowing the next moment to happen. And those are for me, out of my own experience, those are the times where you get the phone call, you get the creative idea, you get the message, the navigation, the guidance into the next action step
mm,
without effort.
yes, yeah. And I think that the trick is then to, once you're listening and you're hearing those messages, is to go with that, because I can then very easily get back out of the present moment to say to myself, do I really want to do that? Is that beneficial? Where's that going to take me? I don't really want to do that. And letting go again of that control to say, well, what, I don't know why. I don't know what that is, what it's all about, but I'm going to trust. So I guess maybe that's where that saying blind faith comes from.
Mhm.
To have the faith, the trust that I am going to be okay, that it's going to take me where I want to go, maybe not down the road that I thought that I wanted to go. And things in life don't happen necessarily the way that we think that they're going to happen. But the trust that ultimately I'm going to get to where I want to go, like I said, just maybe down a different road.
Right. And a lot of times, I'm not sure about you, but in my experience, it always ends up better than I expected.
Mm, yeah. I think that that trust of putting it out there, that this is what I want, and we're asking constantly, right? Whatever happens in the day, you either agree with it or you don't agree with it. I want more of this. I don't want more of this. I want to be around this person more. I don't want to be around that type of person. And so I think that those asks that we have accumulate. And so, although we know what the ask looks like individually, when it's all put together, we might not know what that has in store for us.
Right.
And I agree that it's usually greater than anything that we could have imagined.
Because, yeah, I don't know why that is. I'm not even going to figure it out. In my experience in my life, I'm like, oh, wow, this is like, and it makes me realize how limited I am in thinking that I can control it. What if I allow it, the abundance actually flows through? That's why it always ends up
Mm,
more than, because I'm not interfering with it. And
mhm,
I'm like, set it, guys, and just leave it. Be still. Go about your business. Just focus on being present. Don't think about anything else. Um, I don't know what your experience has been like personally, and if you can touch up on it. I know for me, my experience with being still oftentimes starts to transform my body and my mind and my emotions, where it guides me to move out of old paradigms, out of old beliefs. And sometimes how it shows up in my life, not all the time, but there have been moments in my life where it shows up, where as soon as I go into that stillness, as soon as I become present and I'm breathing, I'm thinking of nothing around me, I'm not actually putting any effort. I don't even know what that is that I'm going to be transformed about or what's going to come to me. But then it's like a little mini storm happens in my life. And you're like, whoa. And I have to remember in those moments that the energies in my body have just been disrupted. So be
mm,
still. In those moments, be still and let it settle, and water finds its own level. And then all of a sudden, something births out of that little storm. How's your experience looked?
Um, I would agree completely with that. That although I don't think that I necessarily try to be present for those things to happen, um, I want to be present because it feels good.
Hmm.
Um, and my goal every day is to be happy
Hmm.
and to do the things that feel good.
Right.
So there are times when I'm, I want to get this stuff done, or I'm objectively, I want these things accomplished. Um, but it doesn't always feel good to try to rush through those things, or to, fight to make sure that they're done. Whereas when I'm present, wherever it takes me, it is always happy. It's always joy.
Right.
And those two things are more important to me than anything.
Right.
Um, and I think that that is what motivates me to be present.
Right.
Um, it's really as simple as that. You know, I spent so many years writing goals down, or trying to accomplish something, trying to make something happen. And not to say that it didn't happen, but the process to get there wasn't necessarily as enjoyable as it could have been
Right.
had I have been more present during that. Um, and you know, in the past of, you know, me having, you know, so when I had a head injury, and coming out of that and learning, that's really, I guess, when it cemented the importance of being present, because I was just so grateful to get up each day and to be able to function, to not have a headache, to be able to walk up and down the stairs more than once in a day. And so my ideas of what I wanted out of my life that were going to make me happy, um, changed. That the happiness that I was looking for was within my control because I could choose it inside
Mhm.
of me.
Mhm.
Um, and the the being present piece of it, is just a way for me to be happy. So I don't know, you know, as I'm talking this out, you know, do I choose to be present, or do I choose to be happy?
Right.
And because I choose to be happy, I'm present more. Right.
Right.
So what came first? I don't know. Like, it's
Chicken or
interesting
the
as we
egg,
have
right?
these conversations. I'm in my head. I was like, oh yeah, people are watching this, or people are listening. So you're
But this is
privy
what it
to
is.
the.
It's a conversation.
So you're being privy to the conversation that's going on inside my head right now. Of, oh, hold on a second. You know what? I think it's happy. I think that I choose happiness, um, and being present is a piece of that.
Right.
Um,
And everybody's just going to define differently, like,
mm,
and how, and I guess the idea at the end of the day is, for all those of you watching, is to give yourself the opportunity just to be present.
mm,
And your body will speak to you, your soul will speak to you in that moment. In your, you're being present in your own self. You're showing up for you and being present in that moment for you with no attachments. It's, I think I said it to you earlier on, like the void. It's like a void. Like you're giving yourself a chance of nothingness in that moment. You're not carrying anything, you're not thinking of anything. And as you say, it's that trust piece, that it's okay for you to be here, that everything else in life is being taken care of. It is already taken care of.
mm,
And for one moment, you just get to be present, however long it is. And I know for myself, I go into those moments and I'm like, I don't know how long I've been in this moment, but I got to come out of it. And I've sat in that moment for an hour and a half. I'm like, okay.
got it. And yet, so why is it okay? So why? Let me ask you this: like, after we've talked about being present and the importance of being present for that we've experienced, why would you make that face about being present for an hour or an hour and a half?
Because sometimes I think to myself, not, I'm not thinking there now, but in the beginning, I was like, is this normal?
Oh yeah.
Like
Yep.
I got stuff to do. Like you get back into your head, I got stuff to do.
Mm, yeah.
And now what I do is I turn off my phone. As a matter of fact, I don't turn my phone ringer on as much as I did before.
Mm,
So I check it on my time, my schedule. I do a talk show. I've got work to do. However, my hierarchy requirements that feed me and sustain me is that present moment. So
mm,
it's important for me to get up and breathe and be present. And if I end up being in that zone the minute I wake up for 2 hours, I'm all right with it. Because it actually becomes, I'm going to use a word that I'm not necessarily happy to use on the show, but it's almost addictive because you're
Mm,
like, life always, for at least in my experience, I can't speak for anybody. I'm not doing the present moment to set my intention and then be present. I'm just being present.
mm,
And as a result of that being present, all of a sudden, everything just starts to unfold beautifully in my life. Now, again, I'm not setting an intention, I'm present. And then sometimes a storm will happen, and I realize, yes, because you're moving into a different space. As you say, I want to be happy. Well, I want to be happy. Well, all of a sudden, I'm going to use this just metaphorically. It's like my body saying, okay, well, I've got to clean out all the unhappiness then.
mm,
So I got to create a little bit of a storm. It's like you're detoxing, you
mhm,
become sick or something. So you're healing a piece of that.
mm.
And then there's the calm. So yeah, in the beginning, it was like, I've been here
And I
forever.
guess, and I didn't mean to put you on
No,
the
no,
spot,
no.
but I did kind of mean to put you on the spot.
Okay.
And why I say that is because I'm trying to think about how I would have been
Hmm.
listening to our having this conversation, and think, like, how do you get there? How do you, like, okay, so I've heard you guys talk about how wonderful it is to be there, but me in my mind of before being able to be present, questioning and saying, okay, so what does that look like? How do you get there? How does, like, I get that it's joyous and fun and happy and peaceful, and but how do you do it?
I
How
don't think that there's a formula versus just doing it.
mm,
When I first started out, number one, I was somebody that was anxious. We've known each other for a very long time, and I'm sure I've been in your presence before where I'm like on a high, although I can't breathe. And that was me for a long time, where the thought of being still gave me even more anxiety.
mm,
Um, I'm constantly thinking, and I would have been the first one to be like, "Oh yeah, Karen, it's easy for you. You don't understand what's going on in my life. You don't understand what I have going on. I've got this to deal with and that to deal with." And I created this whole story with this angst and stuff to do. And it's uncomfortable. And my thoughts, I can't sit down for a minute. I'm like falling off my chair. I'm falling asleep. My mind's going in 5,000 different directions. Um, and I swear, I was like, I have a disorder because I can't sit still.
mm.
Um, and I think it was the moment where, what's that saying where the pain is too much, that there's a saying like when the pain,
Oh, when the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change, or something like that.
yes, then you change. And I think it was me having that light bulb moment of, this is too painful to live my life from this space.
Mm,
And in this space, all I wanted was peace. So as I sat down, I think I might have lasted a minute because I'm like, oh, this isn't working. And
I
I
got
had
stuff to
already,
do.
right. Well, I had already told myself it was BS. Truth be told, I already told myself. But if you know my personality, I'm going to do it just to say I told you so. Simple. So I
Mm,
sat down. I probably lasted a minute, and I didn't feel anything. I didn't like it. It did nothing for me. But I showed up again and I did it again. Did nothing for me. Didn't like it. So I'm not going to paint this pretty picture. What I decided to do was commit to doing it.
mm,
And as I was doing it, you're on your phone, things pop up on your feeds, and you start to be guided in a direction that you start to get resources and
mm,
different entry points, I call it.
mhm,
So you do it, and just over time, eventually something just lifted. And I call it like when what's Oprah says, and I don't, again, I'm not into memorizing these quotes. Something about opportunity, action meets opportunity, or something like that.
oh, getting ready, preparing to for the opportunity to arrive, or something to
Right.
that effect.
So what I made a commitment to do is that I would show up every day.
Mm,
And hope, not believing, not having faith in it, not knowing that it'll crack, because I didn't believe in it. Well, at least consciously, I thought I did. But I think at that moment, I was in such pain from living the life that I was living, and I had tried everything else, that this was the last thing that I was going to do.
Mm.
So for anybody watching that's listening to us, yes, everybody's experience is different. That was my experience. I have somebody writing in saying, I'm the same, I can't sit. Right. So there's so many people listening that it's not that easy. I think the key to it is being committed. Just show up. If you can do a minute today, do a minute. If you can do a minute tomorrow, do. What I started to realize was that in that minute, I wasn't breathing. I was still, okay, a minute. What's the timer saying? I would set the timer and it would be like 5 minutes. I can't, it's only a minute. Like, wait.
Oh my God.
What do I say? And I think at the time, I think it comes down to a place where you love yourself, but you don't realize you love yourself. So you've made that commitment that this is what you're going to do, and you're going to trust it, but you don't trust it. It all contradicts itself. You're in chaos. What do I say?
Yeah. It's well, and I think that is a great word to describe, because when the mind is racing like that, it is chaos. Right. I can really relate to what you were saying about, a minute or whatnot, and thinking, oh my God, like, is this done yet? And so how I began was I did the breathing piece.
Yeah.
Right. So I would focus on my body breathing in, breathing out. What it felt like to actually have not just my stomach come in and out when I was breathing, but to have my whole body expand and contract with a breath.
Mm-hmm.
And I would do that at red lights as I was driving to work, or stop signs, because I was alone. Like, I didn't have kids that were running, and I really didn't have to think about it very much. I just had to get to work, right? And so that was the time where I would start to notice that I couldn't do it for a 15-minute segment, but I could do it for a 10-second segment. And that might sound very minimal to people, but that's truly where I started. That it was I'm just going to press a reset button. And it only took a couple of breaths, however long a light is, to allow me to, okay. And it was just, I did that throughout the day, right? So it was these minute times of being present that then led me to being able to, okay, now I'm going to attempt to meditate. I had a big resistance around that word meditate. It's like, there's no way that I'm doing this.
Right. So that was the other turnoff, right? Because we think that.
That I'm going to do this, and that I got a chant, and, all of these other connotations that came with meditation.
I resonate with that 100%.
So I started calling it something else. I started calling it quieting my mind, right? Because I didn't have any resonance or any restrictions or resistance around that terminology. And so throughout the day, I would take these, 10 seconds to quiet my mind. And it led to, okay, I'm going to try the 15 minutes of quieting my mind. And that was, I had 30 seconds then of quieting my mind and thinking, like, yes, like I did this, right? And I got it, like, that was probably 5 years ago that I started, maybe not quite, 4.5 maybe, that I started to do this quieting my mind, aka meditation. And now I'm up to an hour and if you had told me at the beginning that I would be able to do this for an hour, like, no, you don't know who I am, right? I got too much stuff going on to be sitting there for an hour. But I actually wake up now early to meditate. Again, a crazy concept for me to, in my past.
Now you're meditating, you're getting.
But hold on a second. Now I'm going to wake up at 5:30 in the morning to do that, when I could just sleep. My mind's not working when I'm sleeping. But the benefits, the experience of just being present for that time is it's hard to put into words about, if I'm talking to myself now, like, Karen, you make no sense. You are getting up early to meditate when you could sleep, and then you're quieting your mind, but it's quiet when you're sleeping. And yet you're telling me that I need to get up at 5:30. And I'm not by any means telling anybody that they need to get up at 5:30. It just happens to be, I want to start my day off like that. I want to start my day off consciously, not taking any baggage from the day before, and to start with a clean slate.
Right.
So I find that when I am meditating, I do it throughout the day as well, but that is the one time that I am committed to, that I want to start the day off with my mind that is clear.
Mhm.
And if I don't do that, because there are days that I don't do it, I find myself thinking about everything that happened yesterday, usually everything that went wrong, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Mhm.
not that went right, like, oh, I got to do this, or this is still bothering me, or I still have energy on that conversation that I had with that person, and
Right.
who's probably never thinking about me anyways. But it's a great way to, it's just a great way to just start fresh. It's kind of, I guess, if I had to explain it, that feeling of, for me, it's not the new year that starts fresh for me. It's usually September. The kids are going back to
Yeah, right.
school,
Yeah.
and we're getting back into a routine, and I feel refreshed when that happens. And that's the feeling, the emotions, the sense of, okay, we get to start again. Every single day when I wake up now is how I want to start the day.
Absolutely. And you said, it's interesting that you said, 5:30 in the morning. There's something that when people start to really get into this and allow themselves the opportunity and the chance to stay committed and then really allow it to be part of their life, you don't have to try to get up early in the morning.
No.
You just want to.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
just want to say this, I think it's very important that I want to honor meditation practices, that doing the chants and
Mm.
doing that, it works.
Mhm.
So I certainly want to keep the credibility there. It didn't work for me personally, but there's a space for it. It's just everybody, I say there's many roads to getting to the destination. It's the road you choose that is the right fit for you. Obviously, Karen, we just so happened that it wasn't a fit for us,
Well,
coincidentally.
it's funny because saying that, like, that was me at the beginning,
Right.
right? And as I have now, I don't have a resistance around meditation. Like, that was me, initially.
Mhm.
I don't have a resistance around that word. I actually do sit like this now, because there is an energetic flow that happens through your fingers. I
Mhm.
was just not present enough to actually feel that. So why was I going to do it? I had no idea what I was doing anyways. Um, what is this? But even now, when I'm not able to meditate, I will have my fingers like this
Right.
to feel that energetic flow through my fingers, and it brings me into the present moment,
Right.
because you started off this conversation talking about feeling the tingling in your toes, and feeling your body, and that is just a cue for me to feel my body again.
Mhm.
um, so for all of those things that I was resistant to, it's funny how it's come full circle now.
Of
And
course.
like I said, it's taken, 5 years, 4.5 years to get to this point. But yes, I don't want to discredit meditation or chanting or anything like that, because that is now a part of my life.
Right.
Um, it's
It's just,
yeah.
but
So
the
thank you
reality
for bringing
is,
that up.
we'll just,
It's
yeah, like, you know, we know what our intentions are. We know where our heart's at. The reality is, I think that that's what a lot of people listening in on this can identify with, what their challenges are that stop them from meditating, because they think that they have to assume that role, that position right away. And it's
mm,
not that easy.
yeah.
You,
It's on I was just noticing on Netflix. I'm not a big Netflix watcher, blah, blah, blah. But there is how to meditate, how to, like, for beginners on
right.
there. if I could off the top of my head even remember what that was called, but there is a show on there. Sorry, I know I'm full of information yet nothing that's valuable, right? Um, but go on Netflix and look and find meditation. And they're 20-minute segments, and actually to teach how to do it, and without the connotation of having to sit cross-legged in a position and fingers together and all of that kind of stuff. And I was watching it, and it was, I wish that that was around when I was, beginning this process, because it would be very valuable to, not have the pressure, not have those um, preconceived notions of what it was supposed to look like or not look like. And it was very, very well done. So if anybody is out there and they are looking at trying to start a meditation practice, I would highly recommend going to Netflix and finding that meditation that I can't tell you what the name is.
I think it's mindfulness or something like that. Like, I know what you're talking. I don't know the name of it. I think it's mindfulness, and it's got a series in it. Yeah. So I want to bring the breathing part up. We've got 7 minutes, and I want to bring the breathing aspect of it up, because I find that one of my comebacks with people, and I don't like the way I phrase comeback, when somebody's going through something in the moment, I always tell people to breathe, because that is I'll be in the grocery store and I'll say, Tanya, just breathe. And it brings me back to, like, it reminds me that I can let go of whatever it is, as you say, the worry, or whatever it is going on in my life. Just breathe, relax. And I'll say to people, I just need to breathe. Like, I don't know if I've ever done it with you on the phone, but I'm very open to saying to somebody in the middle of whatever is going on, I just have to breathe right now. Right? And that's my way of attaching to, I can let it go and just be present in the moment. It's being taken care of, whatever that is in that moment. And it allows me to be present in the moment of grocery shopping, or feeling myself push the cart, admiring the colors on the packaging, just being present in that moment. And you're free, like it's like a little kid, like you just feel the sense of freedom.
Well, there is actually a scientific reason or a physiological reason of why that is beneficial. So when we learn how to breathe properly, which is breathing in and out through your nose, and getting the exhalation to be longer is what you want to look for. And when you're doing that, what happens is the diaphragm actually is able to come up into its resting position,
The
which it
doctor
doesn't
speaking
usually.
to us, everybody.
Yeah, no doctor here. But I'll tell you all about breathing. And so what happens is that when our diaphragm doesn't actually get back into its relaxation position, we are constantly in the fight or flight response, right? Which is survival, right? And so we are always in this survival mode of, like, what's around the corner, and whether we are consciously aware of that, that is how so many people function these days in life, right?
Oh, right. Yes.
And so getting it, so we can look at, okay, meditation, we can look at, being present, we can look at the physicalness of taking that diaphragm and allowing it to relax. So whatever entry door we're going through, it's going to bring you into that same position of stillness, which then does everything that we've spent the last hour talking about. Is just that calm, that place of, I'm okay.
So I know that you're very in tune. You've got a deep knowledge of, you're perceptive, you're intuitive, and share with us. Did we lose you there? I think we lost her. Well, let's continue on. So a lot of people I find are, I think she's coming back. Let's see. A lot of people I find, when you're talking to somebody, you can actually tell that somebody is not breathing. They're speaking from their upper register. They're not speaking from their diaphragm. The way that their voices are being projected, the sound isn't coming from their core. It's coming from their upper register. They're speaking through their throat. They're not speaking through their diaphragm. And you can tell the way that they're pulling their words and stringing them together that they're actually not breathing. So you want to pay attention to when you're speaking, can you feel that? Can you feel your words, the sounds, the vibrations? Can you feel it coming from your core as you're breathing? So let's see. I think she's, here we go. Okay, I don't know if you heard
technical difficulties. I don't know what happened there.
Oh, good.
I'll talk to you about the body. Don't ask me about, technical stuff.
Well, I was just saying to the audience that oftentimes, I know for me in my practice, one of the things I look out for when people are speaking with me is how they're breathing when they're speaking to me. Are they speaking from their core? Are they speaking from their throat? Are they speaking from their upper register? Is the sound being projected from the core? Is it being projected from the throat? It indicates if they're breathing or not when you talk about the diaphragm, the expansion of it all. And, and then you get them to that place where they're relaxed and they can speak and they're breathing and you're like, wow. And then you trigger them and all of a sudden it changes. What's your experience?
I was just going to say, but I think that is, well, exactly same experience. But I think that awareness is something that we can all use for ourselves, is to pay attention to our breathing and know that, oh, when I'm, somebody has triggered me, I can feel the little, when I had my aha moment, and I'll share, I had text Tanya on the weekend about this aha moment, and I could feel my hands were shaking as I was texting, and I could feel my breath going. And I thought, oh wow, like that's cool. This whole fear piece came over me, and with that fear came a change in my breathing.
Right.
Now I was able to get it back, but it's interesting to monitor ourselves through our breathing.
It's a powerful thing. So the takeaway, what's the takeaway? We've got about a minute left. What's that last nugget that we can give about being still, being present, tied into that self-awareness of breathing? And I think we lost her. We lose you? We got you there?
I'm back again.
Yes, here we go.
Somebody help me with this technology, please.
Yeah. Did you hear anything I said?
No, but I'm sure it was wonderful.
Okay. Well, the last piece is, guys, just pay attention to your breathing. Karen, thank you for being with us this evening. Mm-hmm. You can follow Karen on Physiofunction on Instagram and Facebook. You can also follow Tanya Ricketts 4 and Tanya Talks 4 on Facebook and Instagram. I will be joining back tomorrow. I'll be back tomorrow with Sophie Audie Show, and we will be talking about opportunities. So I look forward to that. So stay tuned, tune in tomorrow and join us as we have that conversation. Karen, it was wonderful. Thank you very much. Everybody have a good evening, and thanks for tuning in. Good night.